All right, everyone, we are done with Mercury retrograde. We are now in the shadow zone, but Mercury is finally moving direct. And to celebrate, I have been saving this very special interview for just the right time for Mercury to go forward. And today I'm going to be chatting with the OG of tarot and astrology and all things spiritual entrepreneurship, Theresa Reed, also known as the Tarot Lady. Aloha! Welcome to the Savvy Luminary, an astrology podcast for entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Leslie Tagorda, an Aquarius boss woman, a brand designer, and business astrologer. I help visionaries, spiritual entrepreneurs, and impact makers just like you reach your highest potential and become the luminaries you are star charted to be. Woohoo! Oh my gosh, I am so excited to bring you this special interview with Theresa Reed. I've met her a few years back. I first got introduced to her work because she was a guest in a business mastermind where she was doing card readings. And I was so impressed with her, like, no frills, no BS way that she just kind of like interpreted her tarot cards, just like the sheer wisdom that she shared with her intuitive readings. I mean, Theresa is just this wonderful powerhouse of a spiritual entrepreneur who walks her talk, who shares her knowledge. And in this episode, we are going to just talk about how she's been able to use astrology and use tarot in her business, how she's able to share that information, how she really ignited her to start a business when nobody else was doing this, and how she really started to show up every day to share this wisdom. This really amazing conversation. I felt like I was talking to a best friend, and we did a little mini reading, and I can't wait to share this with you as we talk to Theresa Reed in this special episode. Hi, Theresa.
Hi, Leslie. Thank you so much for having me. I am so happy to talk to you today.
Oh my gosh, me too. If you don't already know who Theresa Reed is, you definitely need to follow her on Instagram, the Tarot Lady, where she is dropping so much wisdom, everything about the stars and tarot and all of that. I would love to know kind of some of that background. Like, you show up every single morning. What's that about?
Well, consistency is very important to me. And I like to say, now you and I both are astrology people. I've got 3 planets in Virgo. I am a very consistent person. I am a very reliable person. And so when I commit to doing something, I always follow through. Even if it feels like, oh my God, this is every single day, I just simply follow through. And it's really comes from a good work ethic. My father, also Virgo, very, very Virgo, instilled in every one of us that work is really important and you want to show up and you want to do a good job and you always want to show up. And so growing up with that kind of a work ethic, it's actually second nature to me. I don't even think twice about it. I just simply do the work.
Do you find that you direct that kind of consistency in certain places? I know you have Virgo, like we jumped to we dove right into the deep end, right? Like but I'm looking at your chart. I always love to look at people's charts when we're talking because I see these little things just light up, right?
Mhm.
And so your three Virgo planets, Uranus, Pluto, and Mars, all in the 11th house
Mhm.
with kind of like bigger groups and bigger networks. And, that commitment in building your groups on Instagram, on social media, on your podcasts. Do you find it directed mostly your consistency directed there? Or do you find it directing in like all parts of your life?
It directs in all parts of my life. I'm extremely reliable. I like to say reliable Roger. If I say I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And that's one thing that my children will also tell you, that they always know when mom says she's going to do something, she does it. So it shows up in every single area of my life. I mean, sometimes people that I haven't talked to in like a million years, they'll be like, "Oh my God, you still have the same phone number?" And we'll pick up with right where we left off, even if we haven't talked in 10 years. I'm very, very consistent. I'm very grounded.
That's amazing because, if somebody were who was just getting into astrology and they would look at your chart and they would see all of that pile up of Gemini energy, right? They'd be like, well,
Hmm.
Geminis can't make up their mind. Geminis can't do this. And like, it's such bull, right? Like the judgment that Gemini gets.
Gemini gets a bad rap. You know what, Leslie, I saw on Twitter a while back and I was shocked. They said, what is the most hated sign? And people were piling on Gemini. I'm like, what? We are so fun. We're youthful. We are witty. We never run out of things to talk about. We're always learning new things. We know about every current event.
Yes.
Geminis are awesome. But the shadow side, as you and I both know, every sign I always say has a high vibe and a low vibe.
Hmm.
And Gemini can be flaky. And when I was younger, I was much flakier. I was more impulsive. And I knew at a certain point that that wasn't doing me any favors. So I knew I had to like tap into that Virgo nature, get more pragmatic, and stop goofing off. And once I stopped doing that, well, then all the magic came together for me.
Yeah. So that's such a great question because I was really curious about when you've been showing up, like making that commitment, what changes? Like, what have been the results? Because I mean, I see it just, from like you've been doing it for a while. You were one of the
Mhm.
first people, tarot readers, first people to really go into the spiritual entrepreneurship. But like,
Mhm.
just that result of what's been that result of just every day, every day, every day.
Well, everything when you are let's look at it like a habit. If you are doing a certain habit or practicing something every day, maybe you're practicing learning a musical instrument, you're not going to get good right off the jump. You have to do everyday practice. And that really applies to everything in our life. I mean, we get up and we brush our teeth without thinking about it. Why? It is a habit that's been ingrained in us. So when I look at doing my work, I don't look at it like, oh my God, I've got to work. It's like, this is something, it needs to be done, just like brushing my teeth or playing the guitar. If I want to get good at my work, if I want to serve people properly, I have to have those good habits. And so I tend to look at it like that. It's routine, it's habit, it's just something I do. And, if there's something in my life that at a point becomes like, this doesn't feel right anymore, I also don't have a problem walking away from something.
Yeah, like you've grown out of it, right? Like the boundary is done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will say, again, the Gemini nature, I do love to scatter my forces. So I have to rein that in so I can remain reliable. I don't want to be all over the place, which is one of the things I have to work really hard to like dial back on.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I know you don't know me very well, but if the listeners here who've been following me for a while, in episode 51, I released at the very tail end of Capricorn season. And it was really about success isn't about talent, success is about commitment, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
Capricorn, Virgo too, and Saturn, and your Saturn in Pisces, which is like, oh, well, look at how Theresa is utilizing her Saturn in Pisces, right? It's just like zoop focus with Mars right there across your natal chart. And it's like this wonderful thing about, hey, you don't have to be the most talented, you don't have to be the prettiest, you don't have to be the best, you just have to show up consistently.
That is really, really important. And, every once in a while, I'll get people showing up in my world that they assume there's a magic bullet. Like somehow I'm lucky, or it's a magic bullet, or I've been handed some kind of gifts. And I will say, I caught on to tarot and astrology very young. I got good at it very young. I mean, I seem to have a real knack for it.
Yeah.
And I do have a lot of privilege because of the color of my skin, and I'm really quite aware of that. And I'm able-bodied, so there are things that are on my side that make it easier for me to succeed. But it's still there's not a magic bullet. I had to study. I still have to study. I have to show up. I have to do the work. There's no getting around that. There is no getting around that. It doesn't matter about those quote unquote lucky breaks. You still have to go and do the work. And when people say, well, how can I make this happen quickly? And it's like, I can't tell you how to do that because I've been at my career for 30 years.
Yeah. Well, I love how you bring these things up. You bring about like the privilege. You recognize your
Mhm.
privilege. You recognize your hard work. You recognize all of these things. And I also want to reflect that back on you. What I see you doing in your work is I see you sharing your platform and I see you empowering others. In like, when I shared my books with you, you're like, oh my gosh, yes, please send them on. And not only did you read them and receive them, but you share them on your platform. And that's true leadership. especially as we are moving into like this Aquarian age, which to
Yep.
me is about shared social equity. Like,
Yes.
right?
Everybody needs to get a seat at the table. But also, that's also the high vibe of a Gemini as in a business. The high vibe of Gemini in business is sharing information. And, sometimes people don't want to share other people's information because they assume somehow that's going to impact them in a negative way. Like it's going to take work away from them. I'm like, listen, there are billions of people in the world. We've got plenty of work to share around. And I'm one of those people when I get excited about something. And by the way, your books are so, so good. When I get excited, it's a no brainer. I'm like, oh my God, I got to tell everybody about this. And I've always been like that. I've always been that big mouth kid who got excited about this band or something like that. And I want people to know. I love sharing information. Information sharing is one of my favorite things in the world. So I'm always letting people know what I'm reading, what programs they should sign up for, what things might be interesting, or maybe the news stories that I've been reading and find fascinating. Because I mean, that's what I live to do. I want to share.
Yes, I think that's why I love you so much. We have a lot of serendipitous energy. I have Gemini rising with my Saturn in the first house. So, like, I'm one of these people that's all about committing to and
Yep.
learning how to focus that Gemini energy. So, you brought us into this, like, this perfect question. I'm so curious because you practice so many forms of astrology, and I've heard you talk
Mm-hmm.
about political astrology, which I definitely want to get into in a little bit. But how do you use astrology in your business? And when did you first start bringing astrology into your business?
Well, like most people, when I first started studying astrology, and I started studying when I was 15, so that's 40 years ago, it was to try to figure out who I am. And that was always very interesting. Well, who am I? Why don't I fit in with this family? Why am I so different from the people I'm growing up with? And astrology started really answering a lot of questions about that. And then as I got a little bit older, then it became a tool for choosing partners. Like, is this person going to be groovy? Are we on the same wavelength? Are we going to have fun together? So that it became that. And it remained like mostly about kind of understanding human nature for quite some time. And then many years ago, and I'd been in business again for a long time, I was dealing with some business stuff. And I thought, these planets, I'm always watching them for other things. I wonder what would happen if I started applying this to my business. And so I started following, especially the moon, very closely with my business. And I started aligning certain things with the moon, certain activities that I would do during the moon. I paid attention to Mercury retrograde, Mars retrograde. I said, let's not launch then. Let's work on the computers. Let's back things up. I made lots of mistakes along the way as I started really following it. But as soon as I started getting the hang of it and watching those cycles, well, a lot of magic unfolded in my business. I also learned to look at my chart and understand my strengths and weaknesses in my business.
Yes.
Like for example, one of the funny things is I'm extremely introverted, which nobody would ever believe it in a million years. I'm extremely introverted. I love being alone. I love being by myself. And my astrology chart, I've got a Leo midheaven. I'm like, you've got to be on that stage whether you like it or not. You have to do it. So learning even things like that. And that was very good for my business, getting on stages. I'm great with a mic in my hand, but it's not what I want to do, but I know it's what I should be doing.
Yeah.
And so it's all these things I started incorporating into my business, and my business improved dramatically. When you understand how cycles work and how your own astrological natal chart shows how you operate, well, you can, number one, show up in your business as the best version of you, and also learning how to work with those cycles. Well, now you have another layer of planning that you can do for your business that is going to be in alignment for the highest good of you and your business. Last year the planets were so gnarly. I knew I knew there were going to be some rough waters, but because I knew it, while everybody else was freaking out, I'm like, yeah, Mars retrograde, Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, Saturn, Pluto conjunct.
All in
I
one
didn't
year.
I didn't have a problem because I already knew it was coming.
Yeah.
So I think it's very helpful.
Yeah, I think, 2020 for like all of the losses, there were so many gains for so many
Mhm.
people. Like it really shook things up in a way that just kind of like leveled the playing field a little bit.
Yep.
I love that. I also love hearing how you use astrology, because I think that's how most of us fall into astrology, right?
Mhm.
Like this self-curiosity, then it's like, oh, okay, well, am I gonna jive with that person?
Yes.
But then when you really start to use astrology in this like really empowering way, it's more about self-actualization.
Yep.
Yes, like learning those vibrations and then keep like this endless cycle of elevating and elevating and elevating it. And that's what I love doing for people, with just kind of
Yes.
uncovering their charts. And then, yes, of course, working with the rhythm of the energy. So we're not working against the energies that we get to play with.
Right,
Right.
which is often what people do. I mean, I did it in my own business too. I
Yeah.
hid from the stage. I didn't want to get on stage. That's going against my Leo midheaven.
Mhm.
And when I was doing my business back in the early part of doing my business, it was more kind of like winging it.
Mhm.
And then when I started really following the planets, then I got very strategic. I got super strategic. And once again, the magic happens. People say, well, you've been in business 30 years. What's your sauce? And I'm like, I work hard and astrology.
Yes.
It works.
I'm curious if anything specifically happened for you, just thinking, to thinking back, like your Uranus opposite Uranus. Like I feel like after your first Saturn return, like that midlife Uranus opposite Uranus is such this breakthrough thing. And I'm curious if you can remember back to then, like how your business might have changed after that
The
transit.
biggest the biggest thing that was happening at the time, I was dealing with a lot of elder care.
Mm.
And so suddenly I had to get hardcore with my schedule. And that was the biggest thing. I tended to be a little bit more looser with the schedule, but that Uranus stuff and dealing with elder care, that had to all change and shift. And also, I had to get really good with technology.
Ah.
And technology, in my opinion, I was late to the game. I resisted technology. I remember when my kids had computers, their father had computers and he was into it. I said, no, I'm not interested in that. I'll use this typewriter. I don't need that. I mean, which was ridiculous. And my children they gave me this old Jew's computer. I said, Mom, you've got to get with the program, knock this off. And I'm like, you're right. I don't want to be the lady standing at the checkout counter, not knowing how to work that thing. So I really dove into technology and I got good at it. I got
Yeah.
good at it because I really put myself into it. And as I was moving through all that Uranus stuff, I mean, I just kept studying and learning about websites and all of that. So I think that's also the big change. I really became more tech savvy.
Yeah, I think, well, all that Gemini energy helps too. And then, a smattering of Aquarius at 0 degrees and your at your IC like that, like I love that part. So what made you decide to start a business all those years ago? Like, were there other tarot businesses, astrology like businesses, not just somebody giving, readings on a back closet or something like that?
Well, I if somebody would have told me that I was going to grow up and be a tarot reader or an author, I would have laughed at them. My goal was to be a makeup artist and go to New York and hang out with all kinds of musicians, which I never became a makeup artist. I did hang out with all kinds of musicians, which is they're like catnip for me. But the makeup artist thing didn't happen, and there was a while where I was kind of like drifting a little bit, trying to figure out what am I going to do with myself? What am I going to do? And I had always been doing tarot at that point in my life, and I had a job in an office that I moved back to take care of my parents, and suddenly I had to figure some things out. And at that time, I just took a job bartending because I thought, well, I need something and I don't want to be totally committed. And I was a lousy bartender, but I ended up bringing those tarot cards to work because they put me on the worst shift because I was the worst bartender. But suddenly, what ended up happening is so many people started talking about those tarot card readings that I ended up with the most popular day, that my days were packed. And I made so much good money off the tips for bringing those cards, with the cards that I'm like, wow, maybe there's something to it. And people were always saying, listen, I want a full reading. I will pay you. And one day I was talking to the boss. I said, I'm thinking I might need to turn this into a business. And he goes, oh, yeah, yeah, you should do that. And he went behind my back and told everybody I would fail. He said, nobody's going to pay for that. Now, there's one thing. I grew up with brothers, and I'm in between two boys. And I know one thing with brothers, they're very competitive. And I was always very competitive with my brothers. So when a man tells me that I'm going to fail, then you bet I am not going to fail. So I quit my job, and that was it. And I just started doing it. And those clients that would come into the bar were booking readings with me. And it was all word of mouth, because this is back in the early 90s. There was no internet. And so for businesses, there were a couple random tarot readers here in the city where I live, and we all became friends and all that. But there was no internet. It was a weird time, and it was still very much, there was a stigma to it. People thought it was devilish or negative.
Mhm.
And, my goal was to educate the public that it's not negative. And so it was a very, very humble and very rough and tumble beginning back in the
Yeah.
wild, wild west of tarot reading, before it became so popular. And I thank the internet for that.
So two things kind of sprung up. The first thing was like, I'm curious about, that what that bartender asked, like, how he started talking behind your back and saying that you were going to fail. That seems to be like a theme maybe in your life, because you have this super powerful T square, that there's
Mm-hmm.
always like this outside action that you're like basically sticking your middle finger to and saying, F this, I'm going to do this anyway. And then you succeed by leaps and bounds. Is that true for you?
Yes, it's always been that way. I was very rebellious as a child. I've always been like one who says, nope, nope, not going to do it. And, uh, I don't like being told what to do. I don't like being controlled. And I
Yeah.
especially don't like it when someone tells me I'm going to fail. Then it's like, oh, no, 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 no. That's not how this works.
Yes.
Now I'm going to succeed. Unless it's something I want to fail in. There's certain things I don't care if I ever win at sports, because I hate sports. But if I did want to win at it, believe me, I would dedicate myself and I would win.
Oh, I believe that. I'm just like, if anybody wants, looking at Theresa's chart is just like this really tight T square, like all of these energies. It's like, don't mess around with Theresa.
It's so funny that you say that too, because sometimes when people look at my astrology chart, they're like, ugh, this is a terrible chart. Everything is in a T square. I'm like, no, no,
No.
no, no, no. It's how you work with stuff that matters.
Yes.
This can be a terrible, messy thing. It's a massive mutable T square. It can be a terrible thing, but it can be a catalyst. It can be the fuel that lights that fire. And you can take that rebellious energy and you can turn it into something where you're carving out your own individual path. So what are you going to do? Are you going to scatter your forces to the winds? Or are you going to look at this and say, oh, hell no, I'm going to do something with this? And that's what I chose.
Yes. See, that's the choice, like, right? Like deciding to commit some things to something and choosing to express these energies at this highest level. Because, earlier we were talking about Gemini being the most
Mm-hmm.
judged, Scorpio also being the most judged, which all of your Gemini energy in the eighth house, right? So there's, this double theme there. But it's like when I work with clients, you poor thing, sometimes people come in and some astrologer or some tarot person at one time told them like, oh, you're never going to have success because you have this thing in your chart. And it's like, I call bull. I call
Thank you.
bull on that, because, this is fuel. Anytime somebody has all of these squares and all of these oppositions, that's creative juice to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then
Yep.
people who have a lot of trines, like I have a grand trine and pretty much went totally wasted for like the first half of my life because things were easy and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to work for anything. So I didn't commit to anything and I got nowhere fast.
Right.
Right.
I mean, they can make you lazy, good aspects can.
Yes.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. Sometimes if you can coast, why not? But then at some point we do feel like, well, this is inertia though. Maybe I do need to challenge myself.
Exactly. So the second thing that I wanted to talk to you that kind of stemmed from the other conversation is you've been in this industry for so long and you know how people hang on to every single word.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then everybody would be like vying to get their question read. And then, you'd pull a card for them and you'd answer this question. And maybe you would say like two sentences, but like everybody remembered exactly word for word what you said. Right. And there's like power in that.
Words are powerful. Words
Yeah.
mean something.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I feel like I'm speaking to like a mirror sometimes. I'm like, wait, I say that all the time too.
And you know, people don't think that, and a lot of people in this industry don't consider the impact of their words. Like when you're talking about clients coming to you and feeling disempowered,
Yeah.
I mean that reader did a disservice. Now, listen, if somebody was doing something really stupid and destructive, of course, I'm the first person to say, listen, you need to be careful. This doesn't feel like it's a good path for you. Let's look and see if there's an alternate route to really make sure that you are going to the highest potential and moving past these obstacles. I mean, that's the way you want to work with it. And
Yes.
I've had readings too from people who use very destructive words like can't or won't or this is bad or, and it's like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that unless you see somebody doing something dangerous. You have to look as a reader, you have great responsibility to look at, let's look at the potential, let's look at the problems, and let's find a strategy. Let's
Yes.
get you moving towards your best thing. I am a firm believer that everybody has an opportunity to make it in this world. Everybody. I never look at someone's chart or at a human and say, well, they're screwed. I don't do that because it's like, okay, well, maybe this is a little messy. Here's my vertical say, let's clear this up. Let's find the best route. Let's do this. We've got this. And I think if readers approach that perspective, you're going to do far more to help people than telling them, well, you got a messed up chart. That does nothing to help anybody.
Yes. So, for all of the listeners out here, if you've ever had somebody give you a reading that told you something like doomsday, just flush that, right? That's not your
Absolutely.
reality.
Unless it makes, again, unless you are in a situation that really isn't healthy for you.
Yeah.
Because the reader should always be focusing on what is for the highest good of this person, not what is going to make me look like some oogie boogie accurate tarot reader or astrologer, but what is for the highest good of this person. Because ultimately, what is this work about? It is about service. It's
Yes.
period. It is service. And again, you do not serve someone by shaming them, by making them feel like it's hopeless, or by telling them what they want to hear either. I mean, that's
Yes.
the other bad thing. You've got to really be honest and earnest. And every time you do that reading, it's never about you. It's always about what is for the highest good, what is going to inspire, what is going to help this person to keep reaching for those goals, but also to be smart about it.
Yes. See, those should be just kind of like basic golden rules, right? Whether or not you're a tarot or astrologer or a business consultant or a coach,
Yep.
like this is about empowering others and helping them go through their blocks and not creating blocks.
Yes. And sometimes, you know, this work, we can create them when we don't think about how we are choosing those words for people. And with astrology and tarot, I think anybody who's learning this stuff really should be also taking lots of lessons on how to communicate in a compassionate way, because that really helps people more than you thinking a square means this or the death card means, you know, blah, blah, blah. We've got to really look at that from a different angle.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because I noticed that after I took a communications course, I was like, oh, my readings, I got so much more inquisitive. It really helped
Yes.
just like these practical tools. I would love to know about your day to day and like what's kind of
Mhm.
challenging. What do you love? Like, what does that look like?
Well, I live very much by routine, as you could probably guess. Everything is very highly structured. And I have to do that because A, it keeps me on track. I don't like getting off track. I don't like having a messy calendar.
Mhm.
So my calendar, everything is really highly organized because I know that I'm going to operate a lot better and I'm going to show up then very present. Whether I'm writing something, whether I'm working with somebody, I want to be 100% present. And the only way I could be present is if I have a very clearly defined schedule. So everything's marked out, everything's on the calendar. I know every Monday is an admin day. It's also the day I clean my office. I know every Tuesday I might be working with a client or I might be involved with a project and meetings. Wednesday is my day also for doing interviews like we're doing here
Yay.
today. It's also maybe the day where I might connect with my virtual assistant and talk to her about goals and things that we need to handle in the inbox. I know that Wednesday night I might be teaching. Thursday, I might be working with clients, Friday, clients, Saturday, a little bit of clients and writing. And then Sunday is off. But every single day is marked out. And I've also started, ending my days earlier. I used to work way too much. Not anymore.
Yeah.
Nope. I start ending my days a lot earlier because I want to be able to read books and read more books and learn new things or take a class or whatever. So that's also something I've started doing, is scheduling in time off and being rigid about it. It's like at a certain time, I'm not in the inbox. You can email me all you want. You're not even getting my assistant. So everything is very structured. And that is the secret to how I live my life. It sounds rigid, but it works. So, and also, by the way, my mornings are always very similar. Get up, take care of the cat. Number one thing. And then I also want to make sure I move my body. I do some meditation. And then I sit down and I do all my card of the day things in the morning. And then I eat my breakfast, which is usually the same breakfast every day. I wear clothes that are always, it's a uniform. It's like Garanimals for adult, black pants, black shirt. I'm like Steve Jobs. I don't want to think about it. Put in some red lipstick and I'm good to go.
Yes, your signature lipstick. I love what you were saying about like, like how you're just like so rigid, but like in a way that gives you all of that freedom and flexibility. I was trying to like hear from your daily routine, because sometimes we can even look at our chart, right, in order to determine our daily routine with like first house, second house, third house. And it's like, okay, first house with your Libra, it's like, who are you connecting with? Oh, you're going to connect with your kitty cat.
First thing is the cat. But Libra rising, connection is important to me. Relationships are everything.
Yeah.
And I'm a long-term relationship person. Although when I was younger, I was very flaky. I had a lot of fun. But I'm still friends with all the friends I went to high school with. I mean, I am in it which is weird. A lot of people I know who are my age are like, wow, you still talk to your high school friends? I'm like, yeah, why don't you? But I love long-term. I've got clients who've been with me for 30 years. Since the day I opened the door, and they would never go to another reader. And I read for their kids. Their like, kids are adults.
Whiskey on the rocks. Tarot, please.
Exactly.
I love what you said. It's like, okay, after I take care of the kitty, then I do my tarot spreads for myself. Oh, there we go. Scorpio in the second house.
Yep. I do. I pull a card every day for myself. And also I put a card out there for the public. Card of the day every day.
I see that on Instagram, and actually have some user questions that I'll ask you more about that. So I would love to know more about these books that you have. So you have 4 books and counting, and I will have on the show notes all of your 4 books, and I have one of them here. But, what's your inspiration and what's next with your books?
So my whole goal with books is always to educate. That's really, again, it's about service. I want to take the stigma out of the sacred arts.
Yes.
And also there's another problem with them, that people sometimes think they can't learn it, that they think, I just can't learn astrology. I'm not smart enough, or tarot's too hard. And I'm one of those people, I've taught many years. I also teach yoga, and I'm like, no. You just need someone who speaks the language to guide you. And so I like to take these subjects, I like to break them down and make them user-friendly so that everybody can learn how to read or how to understand it, or at least to get the very basics so that they can feel a little bit more confident and maybe understand what their astrologer or their tarot reader is talking about. So all of my inspiration is about educating. Even with my podcast, it's about educating people. And again, I don't want to take the magic out of it, but I certainly want to pull back the high priestess curtain and let people say, listen, you can do this. I know you can do it. And let's do this in a way that's going to make sense for you. That's always the inspiration, is to help people know that you've got this, you can do this.
100%. That's what I love. So for anybody who, also kind of feels like that, I have this, one of Theresa's book, Astrology for Real Life. It's really amazing. Like it's everything is like spelled out so easy, gives you kind of like this beautiful bird's eye view of everything, and takes you, you can explore deeper and go into everything. But this is such a great book for just the everyday person who's really looking into astrology. And I think one of the things that I love about this book so much, and this makes my Gemini rising happy, is just kind of like, I love teaching too, and it's just like that the modularity of everything.
Yes.
Breaking everything up into like these little bite-sized pieces that everybody can understand and comprehend. So
speaking a language that's not like over people's heads, which sometimes, unfortunately, speaking of words again, a lot of people in tarot and astrology will talk in this really complicated language. And then people feel they're stupid. And it's like, you're not dumb. They're just talking over your, forget that.
meeting people where they're at, and then also kind of like grounding the spirituality of it. It's like, wait, the spirituality isn't out there to just be woo woo. The spirituality is here
Mhm.
for us to use on a practical basis. Like the
Yep.
tools want to be used, right?
Yes, absolutely. 1000%.
Yeah. So do you have more books coming down the line?
I have something big coming out next year or this year that I can't talk about yet.
Okay.
And it's dropping on September 1st. And it's going to be very cool. It's something that I'm excited about. And it is also going to be very educational.
Oh my goodness. Well, when September rolls around or right before then, please let me know. I'd love to have you back on to talk about your book because that would be amazing.
Oh, I can't wait. This one is, I'm very excited. I'm excited about every book that I do, but I think this one is going to be very much with my heart.
I love that. So, do you have any advice for us with our businesses using
Mm.
astrology or tarot? What's your best business advice?
I'm going to give one tip for each.
Okay.
Okay, so for business, you want to think of your business kind of like the way that farmers think about their farms. You follow the moon. You follow the moon. It's going to tell you when to plant the seeds, how to plant them, and what to be putting your energy into. I'm really big into the moon, and I think that it really works for business. And I know that you know this too because you wrote the book on it, the
I
new moon
wrote.
rituals. I mean, you did. I mean, you wrote the book on it. So I think your book is really awesome because it really does explain how to work with the moon for your business. So that's the first tip. So yes, also people, you should probably get Leslie's book so you understand exactly what we're talking about.
Yes.
But that really does make a difference. Follow the lunar cycles for your business. And also pull a tarot card every morning. What is my guidance for today? So for example, let's say what if we're asking for a guidance for the day and I've got my tarot deck handy,
Ooh.
and let's just say we pull a card. What is my guidance? And we look at this from a business perspective. Well, we've got the hangman, and the hangman says today you want to be very patient. You don't want to make snap decisions about your business. You want to give yourself time to get your perspective straight. So today, slow your roll, take your time, and then you will get the right perspective. I mean, that could be the guidance for the day. So that is a
Yeah.
great way to start out your morning. You're starting it out then intentional. And that's again, when you're working with the lunar cycles and you're pulling a simple card for the day, you're creating an intentional business. You're not just showing up and, well, I guess I should do. No, it's telling you exactly how to work with the energy.
Yeah, it's really interesting to listen to the habits of successful people. And they really do have these different tools for setting
Yep.
intentions. And I love that when your tool, of course, are pulling cards. So actually, I have a question for you about pulling these simple cards.
Mm-hmm.
So Brenda, Florida, she wants to know about your simple divination because she has one that she loves, but it uses 15 cards and it takes a long time to do. She goes, I'd love a simple daily reading and understanding how do you do it? For example, do you shuffle and then spread the cards and pick one, two, or three? Or do you shuffle and pull the top card? Do you shuffle and split the deck with your left hand and pick the top card? It seems like maybe there's too many details that Brenda might be thinking into.
She's overthinking it. And when you're over, and this happens a lot for people in tarot and astrology. They will overcomplicate it. And it's like, listen, simplify it. I mean, sometimes people like with astrology, they'll be like, well, my sun is here, but it's conjunct, blah, blah, blah. And right now we've got Neptune. I'm like, yeah. But wait a minute, there's that one good thing with Jupiter right now that you're missing because you're complicating it. And that you're adding all these things in, and now you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Stop overthinking it. And so with tarot, it is always best to be simple. And what I love to do is I shuffle, and I'm shuffling because I'm making my connection. And then I will put the deck face down. I always cut it into 3 piles. That's my ritual. And then it depends on how I feel. I might pick one off the top, or I spread it out and pick one randomly. Pick one. Just one is all you need. It will give you a lot of information. And if you use that to start out your day instead of 15, you're going to have information that's succinct, that's to the point, and it's going to be way more useful than scattering again your energy between 15 different cards. Now, there are readings I use with 10 or 13 cards, but we still always want to get down to the essence of the card and not overcomplicate it. It's like putting on too many accessories. If you put on too many accessories, it doesn't look good. I mean, this is
Yeah.
Libra rising talk. We
Yeah.
want to simplify. We want to simplify because otherwise it's your eye doesn't know where to go. And that's the same with tarot. So simplify it. You're going to get a much more direct answer.
Oh, that's perfect. So, Brenda, simplify things and trust your gut. And, sometimes there's always that one card that like falls out of the pile. I'm like, oh gosh, I guess this is the one. Right?
Yes, it's trying to get your attention. We call that a jumper.
I always get the jumpers because I'm like, no, wait, I want this one.
Yeah, no, no, no. The cards are saying this is the one you need to look at, Leslie. Leslie, look at this.
I have one more question from another a listener. Grace Van Cleve wants to know more about tarot and astrology and how they work together in your process. She mentions that she had a tarot reading with you this fall, and so far it has been spot on.
Oh, thank you, Grace. I'm so happy that you are here listening in on with us. So for me, tarot is always the main tool when I do a client reading because I use astrology very differently. And so when I do a reading for a client, we all sit down and we start by looking at, okay, well, what is the general energy of the year ahead? So I'm an intuitive reader and I will always start off with that. And then I'll look at the astrology just to see if there's a major aspect happening, like what's Jupiter doing? What's Saturn doing? Especially those two planets, for kind of like an overview of the year. And then we'll do questions, we'll toss cards, we'll look at that. So that's how I combine it. Now, when I'm doing business readings, it's very astrology heavy because that's different. It's like I do the Astrobiz Digest, where that is like a
Yeah.
weekly digest that really distills down what's happening with the lunar cycles on every day. But I also do the Entrepreneur Cast, which is let's look at the bigger picture, the big themes here, and let's look at what timing you need to really be figuring out to do the best, to work with the best the energy is going to give to you. And I do some tarot with that too, but that's very astrology heavy. And when I do astrology or tarot for business, it's a very different part of my brain that I'm using. Because when I'm doing regular tarot readings, it's very intuitive. It's very much, it's like, oh, the psychic thing. Oh, I had a musical oracle. It's different. Business astrology and business tarot, it's very different interpretations. It's a
Mm.
very different side of my brain. And this is where the Gemini thing really shows in me. There's two very, very different sides of my brain. There's also a third one because I also like to do political astrology is my passion. I love doing, oh my
Yeah.
God, I love doing it. But I don't like to put it out there in the open because people get so weird about it. So I do it over
Yes.
on Patreon and I've done it, for years when people have questions about the politics and who's running for president and yada, yada, yada. And by the way, it's very remarkable for picking presidential things. I've been right, a really scary right.
Yes.
And I just find it all really fascinating. But it's very different sides of the brain. So it depends on what kind of reading people get with me. If you're getting a regular reading, it's mostly tarot. If we're talking business, it is mostly astrology. We're very different brains.
Ooh, that is so exciting. I know I get your Astrobiz digest. I absolutely love it. I look forward to it every week, and I'm gonna have to explore the Entrepreneur Cast because I just love like everybody's astrology. I just love how everybody
Yes.
puts their own spin on it because there's no
Yes.
one way to do it
Mm-mm.
either.
No, everybody's got a different perspective. And
Yeah.
I read all kinds of astrology books. I read all kinds of astrology columns. I'm always checking out. And even in my book, Astrology for Real Life, I give a huge selection of recommended reading because I think if you're going to be a good astrologer or a good tarot reader for that matter, you need to get all perspectives. I take classes all the time. I want other people's perspectives. I want to know how they think. It doesn't mean I'm going to say, well, now I'm going to read just like, Leslie Tagorda, but I want to get that perspective. So I'm like, oh yeah, I never thought about that. Duh. Or that's interesting. Or, oh my God, how can I work with this? Or, well, that's interesting, but maybe it's not my thing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's very important. If you want to be a well-rounded tarot reader or astrologer or person who just likes using these tools, read all the books, take the classes, keep learning, and don't
Yeah.
assume there's one way to look at it because there really isn't. I mean, when I look at, for example, like someone like Chris Brennan, who is Hellenistic astrology,
Whew. Yeah.
damn, this guy really makes me think.
Yeah. He
Wow.
is like wise beyond his years. Like I think
Oh,
he's so young and he's so like
he
deep.
blows me away. And
Same
then I look
here.
at like the People's Oracle, Dana Lynn Knuckles, who does sidereal astrology. blows me away. I actually had her do a chart to explain sidereal, and she goes, "Well, in sidereal, you're a Taurus." I was like, "I'm not a Taurus." I wanted to fight it all the way, but it was so fascinating, and it gave me just such a different perspective. Or like, I love Chani Nicholas, who does whole sign houses. I don't do whole sign, and I'm
Yeah.
like, that doesn't work. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Maybe I need to think about these whole sign houses. I love that. I don't want to think I know it all. I never want to think my way is the only way. My way is one way, but there are a million ways and so many beautiful perspectives. I encourage everybody, don't just get with one person. Check out as many people as you can. You are going to get a beautiful, beautiful perspective.
Yes. Oh my gosh. This has been so much fun, Theresa. I feel like we could just talk forever. I have your chart in front of me.
Mhm.
Might I do a little mini reading for you from my perspective?
I would love it. I love, love, love that.
All right. So, what is so striking to me is that Gemini pile up for you in the eighth house with your sun conjunct, like just by like 5 minutes to
Mhm.
Mercury. So,
Kazemi.
Kazemi. And so just like shining bright, shining bright. And I'm curious, like, how do the Mercury retrogrades, they probably affect you like really on a fundamental level. It's like
Oh my
coming to a
God.
stop.
Oh my God. If I had a million middle fingers for Mercury retrograde, they would be up all at once. Mercury retrograde. And here's the thing with it, it's kind of like, I call it PMS, pre Mercury shit. It's before the retrograde actually kicks in. I have all kinds of bullshit happening. As soon as it kicks in, I'm better. I'm like, okay, okay. But I mean, I still end up always getting some impact by it.
Yeah, because your Mercury is moving at top speed. And
Mm-hmm.
so for Mercury to go backwards, it's like you're out of control almost. Like I can just see
Mm-hmm.
that impacting you on a really fundamental level. But with our sun sign, just like what you do and your expertise and your authority and being able to express what you do to me is the sun sign. So it's like, yes, your creative brilliance and communicating and writing and your north node all there and Jupiter expanding it all, like all in the eighth house. So of course, like you are here to share all of this knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And like what you were mentioning earlier, that sharing that wide swath of knowledge, even though you can go deep into the eighth house, that's not really, you're here to share wider knowledge about everything around involving magic and
Mm-hmm.
that old fashioned word occult that we don't really use anymore, but all those eighth house energies. But we already talked about it, how you have your T square to Saturn
Mm-hmm.
and all of that energy in Virgo in your 11th house. And to me, it's like when I was asking earlier about your direction of when do you feel most committed? But like for you, all of your friends, yeah, committing to your friends, committing to your communities, committing to your
Mm-hmm.
networks. You have all of this creative juice that really helps you do and what you do so amazingly well. Then with your moon sign in Scorpio on your second house cusp,
Mm-hmm.
to me, this is super fascinating because when I look at our moon sign, like of course we have Mars and Venus that operate our desires and our wants, but at an emotional, at a core level, our moon sign really shows
Mm-hmm.
us how we desire to be seen and how we want to be recognized and what success is, like what we need to feel secure
Mm-hmm.
to make those kinds of choices and risks in our business. And sometimes I think nowadays it's changing that people are looking more into their moon sign about like how do they want to feel when they're working through
Mm-hmm.
business. And so with your moon in Scorpio, to me, you really value transformation, and that this transformation is this long lifelong thing. So this thirst for knowledge isn't just to understand, it's to transform,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you want to be seen as that kind of mysterious person, yet sharing that mystery, right? There's this mystique about you. And that's also the gift that you bring to people. You help them transform at like just this deep emotional level using spirit, because, you have Neptune really close by.
Mm-hmm.
And then your Libra rising, leading with beauty. And you still have a ton of Scorpio in your first house. So the Libra isn't like your, I think you even use these words, and another client of mine uses these same words, that no fluffy bunny stuff.
Yes. I'm not Libra light. I'm more like
No.
Scorpio heavy. And
Yes.
it's funny, I usually will always read Scorpio horoscopes instead of Libra because I always identify so much more with that. I'm a late Libra rising,
Yeah.
and that Scorpio stuff is strong, and I'm full eighth house. So I
Yeah.
really identify with that.
Well, and then you also have the 12th house. You have in Placidus, you have the intercepted 12th house with the
Yep.
Libras. So that's kind of that not hidden beauty, but that hidden softness. You're like, no, that's not exactly how I'm going to lead, but still with that kind of peaceful warrior, like, hey, I'm here to
Yes.
take a stand. And your leadership is directed in the ninth house, intercepted Cancer, Venus in
Hmm.
Cancer. But it's like you're really helping change people's belief systems and like changing. Oh yeah, what do you think about your cap with your Cancer, your Venus Cancer intercepted there? How do you
Well,
access your?
well, first of all, having Capricorn intercepted in my third house,
Mhm.
I always found that really fascinating because, on the outside with Sagittarius sitting on that cusp, it means I'm very philosophical and jovial and optimistic, but I do have a head for business. I'm very business oriented in the way I think. And so
Yes.
business, I took to business like a fish to water. But when I look at that Cancer, Venus and Cancer intercepted in the ninth house, I see that two ways. For one, I think, I'm very much a homebody. Even though the ninth house is always about being out in the world, I love my home. I love my family. That's what gives me my root. That is what
Mhm.
helps me to remain centered. So that's very important to me. But also, there's that love of learning. It's that love of learning and also the love of, again, taking that knowledge and sharing it and really taking a motherly approach to people when I'm sharing that
Yes.
information. And that's one thing that I do very well. It's always when I read for people or when I teach them, I want to be nurturing them. I never want anyone to walk away feeling bad or like they can't get it. I always want to nurture their knowledge, their wisdom. And so I really see that as my maternal energy comes through in that way.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So you're speaking through exactly your archetype up there, because like with your Libra, with your the ruler of Libra in the ninth house intercepted with Gemini,
Mhm.
it's like you're nurturing their minds.
Yes, absolutely. And making them feel, I mean, think about I often see where parents, and my parents were so guilty of this. And it's also from back in the day. Back in the day, parents were kind of hardcore. My parents
Yeah.
were older, and there was all this negative feedback. And I just don't think that's helpful to
Mm-mm.
young people or to anybody. Isn't it much better to say, okay, well, this topic is a little bit rough for you. Let's work with this. Let's find a way to make it work for you. I used to do tutoring for teenagers back in the day. I also taught CCD,
Yeah.
and when I was in grade school, I also tutored children in the special needs classes. And one of the things I've been very good at with children is really getting them to see you can do this. I'll never forget. I had this girl who was going to fail eighth grade because she couldn't do fractions, and everyone made her feel like she was dumb. And I remember sitting with this kid, and I was an adult at that time. I said, okay, why do you have a problem with this? And she goes, I just can't get it. I'm not good at math. I'm like, well, what are you good at? She goes, well, I love heavy metal music. And she had this big wide knowledge of Poison and Iron Maiden. I said, okay, well, we're going to take fractions and we're going to apply it to heavy metal. And that's
Yes.
what we did. And this kid aced her test and they let her pass eighth grade because I had to find a way to work with her and to nurture her and to get her excited. And that's what we have to remember when we are teachers. It's never about you teaching how smart you are and the knowledge you have. Who cares about that? Get out of that. It is about it's about reaching people where they are and nurturing their intellectual gifts and helping them to find their intellectual gifts in a way that makes sense for them. And that's very motherly.
That's so beautiful. It's so motherly. It's like your nurturing side gets unlocked when you talk about like sharing information, sharing
Yes.
knowledge, opening your mind. And also because, as a self-proclaimed, as you said, you want to stay home, you're a homebody. It's like you explore through your mind, right? Like that's
Yep.
just so amazing. Oh, I just,
And
yeah.
it's important to do that. And it's also, even with the community that I build, it's always about nurturing everybody. It's like, look, you're all welcome here, provided you're not mean.
Yeah.
Just behave.
Just behave, right? Oh my gosh, this was so much fun, Theresa. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us and my listeners before we close up here?
Well, if they want to find me, they can find me at thetarotlady.com. That's my website. But every morning I am doing free astrological transits and pulling tarot cards for every sign of the zodiac over on Instagram. It happens around 9 or 10 o'clock Central Time. I'm there every day. So if you are looking for a little guidance to your day, I'm there every day because, as we've established, I'm reliable.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Theresa is there every day. I see her notifications every day and get very excited. So I will have all of Theresa's links on the show notes, but head on over to thetarotlady.com and find her on Instagram. It's just so wonderful. Thank you, Theresa, for sharing your brilliance and wisdom with us today.
Thank you, Leslie. This was so much fun.
Wasn't that interview amazing? If you want to find out more about Theresa Reed, head over to the show notes on thesavvyluminary.com and you can find her links to her website, thetarotlady.com, and you can follow her on all of her social media channels on Patreon, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at The Tarot Lady. I'll have links to her books such as Tarot, No Questions Asked, Mastering the Art of Intuitive Reading, and my favorite, Astrology for Real Life, a workbook for beginners, a no BS guide for the astro curious. Oh my gosh, I hope you love her as much as I do. Okie dokie, let's get into the astrology of the week of February 21st through the 27th, 2021. So I hope you're as excited as I am that Mercury retrograde is over. Whew, that was a doozy for me, probably because of all of my Aquarian energies. I could not think straight to save my life. We have kind of a quiet week. March is turning out to be a nice quiet month. And I think, we all need a break. I think if we just got into astrology, 2020 was just this crazy year where there was just like epic transit after epic transit. So, kind of coming down from that, things just seem really quiet and like, oh my gosh, why are things so quiet? What's wrong? But you know what? This is how it normally is. So let's revel in, having some space so that we can finally integrate all of the crazy things that have gone on over the last 12 months. All right. So on February 24th, that's right in the midweek on Wednesday, we have Mars trining Pluto, right? So the theme is empowered patience and perseverance, right? What inner power is now emerging in supportive drive? Okay, so Mars is our energy to motivate and initiate and take action. And Pluto is our energy to transform and dive into the depths and bring things into light. Both Mars and Pluto are rulers of Scorpio, and today they are in a harmonious trine with Mars in the earth sign of Taurus, the peace-loving earth sign of Taurus, and Pluto still in Capricorn. So a few days before and after this Wednesday, the 24th, we are all feeling this swell of energy and drive. And quite honestly, it's been quite a while since I've felt this drive, and maybe you have felt the same way. So it's a great time to harness this power to do the things in your business that seemed insurmountable, right? That first step in your 1,000-mile journey. Use this energy to dig into your priorities, the things that will really move your business and brand in the direction you want it to go. One thing to note that is emotions might run high too, especially today. Be aware and channel your physical, emotional, and spiritual energy into your priorities and keep it focused on your goals. Dedication to your ideals can have a lasting impact now. On the next day, February 25th at exactly 5:11 a.m. Pacific and 8:11 a.m. Eastern, Venus enters Pisces. The theme here is connect through spiritual and compassionate values. With what heart centered values can you connect and create with this season while Venus is in Pisces? So, Venus in business represents our values, what we value, how we add value, and also the connection to the right people and the right resources so that we can do our jobs, right? So, this month, while Venus is in Pisces until March 21st, it's a great few weeks to use spiritual tools to call in your right people and your right resources, right? And to use your intuition, because Venus in Pisces, to come up with your revenue aims in your business, right? Because we got to talk about money when Venus is involved, right? Now, when Venus is in Pisces, she loves being in Pisces, right? So we get to use her and maximize her energy because she's really she's in her own, she's in her flow to magnetize and add value, right? While she travels through this beautiful, compassionate sign of Pisces. She's going to stay here again until March 21st. And during this time, it's using our soft powers of empathy, love, interconnectedness, imagination, and fantasy to allow us to call in all of the right people and all of the right resources. Right now, don't mistake Venus in Pisces for being soft or weak. Softness is her power, her ability to stretch, to be malleable, and to bring in information from the divine to make manifest in our physical world, right? So let's bring in all of that value that we desire through Venus. On February 27th or 28th, depending on where you live in the world, we have our full moon in Virgo. The Pisces sun is illuminating the Virgo moon. And so today we are here to celebrate our effectiveness and wholeness. It's time to celebrate our wins around creating organization and efficiency in our business, that's Virgo, and to look at how far we've come. What wins will you celebrate around the health and wholeness of your life and business, right? Because we are only as effective as our health and our wholeness of our daily routines. That's all of the Virgo-ness in one, right? And also looking at like what do we need to let go of that prevents us from finding that wholeness in our business. The Virgo full moon is being illuminated by the creative vibrancy of the beautiful Pisces sun. Today, we celebrate and we release. We celebrate to offer gratitude and recognize how we've already brought in wholeness and health and the Virgo ideals into our business, right? Organization, effectiveness, health, service to others. And we make space to receive by releasing what prevents us from bringing in more wholeness. With Virgo and Pisces, we seek to balance service to others with service to ourselves, work with rest, organization with flow, wholeness with oneness, health with flow, and effort with ease. That beautiful polarity between Virgo and Pisces. Today, I urge you to let go of analysis paralysis, the need to be perfect, and the need to understand everything. In turn, as you let these things go, you allow room for trust in your divine, your highest self, and interconnectedness with one and all. And of course, the most important, the compassion for yourself. That's all we have for the astrology for this week. Again, it's a quiet week. March is also going to be lovely and quiet. So we're going to have the time to bring in ease and flow and finally start integrating all of the lessons that we've learned over the last 12 months. Until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Mahalo for listening to this brand new podcast. If you enjoyed learning about astrology for entrepreneurs, help me spread the word by sharing this podcast with your business besties, and hop over to the Savvy Luminary for links to episode notes and our free Facebook community where you can send me questions about astrology or branding, as well as connect with other like-minded businesses.